So, what are we actually going to cover today? One of the subjects that we're going to cover is the basic T table. And I'm going to teach you how to match your skills for the job. I'm also going to teach you what does it mean when a person calls you back and says, I'm sorry, we did not hire you today because we believe you're overqualified. So, what does that mean? I'm going to talk to you about three different advantages, at least three different advantages of networking. You're going to also learn about why it's important to leave some experience off of your resume, especially if it is not what the company or the job description is looking for. And you're going to be able to also be aware that looking for a job is a job, but it's hard to keep that momentum going. So that's another one of our expertise specialties is that we can help you with that. If you're feeling discouraged, reach out to us. We understand that that's part of this, and we can help you so that you don't end up getting stuck in that situation. I also wanted to let you know that there's some good news that goes along with this. So, before we get started, I would like to have you do some practice. And I know that many of you have probably already been communicating through the chat, but I also just want to make sure that if you haven't used the chat before, this is a great time to practice in using it. So, what I would like to know is just to describe to me in one word. Please make sure that you're going to stay professional and that you are not going to use a word that you wouldn't use at a professional interview. But the question for the one word is how's your job search been going so far? So Sheila, I would like for you to turn your camera back on and just tell me what some of the our guests are writing in the chat.
Oh god. Frustrating, challenging, slow, daunting,
Mm,
interesting. Okay, some are okay. Hopeful.
okay.
So we have some
Yes.
positive and some negative. Um,
So I love this question in this part of the workshop. And the reason that I do is I'm a real strong believer in awareness is the key. And so if you're aware that part of looking for a job is a job, and you're also aware that it can be daunting, it can be discouraging, it can be enduring. Sometimes when you're interviewing, you don't know for sure what they want to hear at the interview. Again, reach out to us because that's our expertise and we can tell you the answers to some of those questions. But also know that that's part of this. So if it's going to be daunting at times, I can do a better job and let me know. I can deal with the truth as long as I have as much information as possible. And so if you're telling me ahead of time that this is going to be tough, age has nothing to do with it. Okay. Another thing that I want to point out to you that I think is really, really important is that the Harvard Business Review is talking about older workers. I am not so crazy about the word older. I actually love to use the word seasoned workers because that's really what we are. We are seasoned, finely tuned. Our expertise, we paid a high price for. So, in addition to that, I always say when I'm interviewing, you know, I paid a high price for the wisdom that I have. But in addition to that, I believe that I can make you a lot of money off of that wisdom. And in turn, I can make some money too. So, do you see how that's a lot different than coming in and saying, I'm too old or for my age, or I don't know, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Retired. So, I'm going to challenge you a little bit today on what are you telling yourself? And is that coming across at the interview? And if it's coming across at the interview, is that the reason that you're not getting the job? A lot of times when I'm working with employers, the reason that they're not hiring the seasoned worker has nothing to do with the fact that the person doesn't know how to do the job and do it very well. It has everything to do with the fact that they're only looking for a temporary fix. And that costs the employer money. In addition to that, uh, we're underestimating what our skills are. So, if we paid a high price for what our skills are, you need to be able to talk about that freely at the interview. You also need to look at them as a value. One of the skills that we have is that we're really good at adapting. So, our adaptability, our soft skills, we get along well with others. We have an edge. We have some emotional intelligence. our education. I also want you to take a look at the society that is younger than us and how their work ethics have changed in a huge way. Now, I can't explain to you for sure why that is. I believe a part of it is because of technology, but my point is that the skills that we have are becoming less and less, but they're still just as valuable, if not more. And again, it's all about how you present yourself. So, one of the things I want you to ask yourself is what has changed since the last time that you looked for work? Well, matching your skills to the skills that are listed is super important. I'm going to give you an example of a gentleman that I was working with, just a wonderful person, very, very skilled. But when I looked at his resume, the first thing that I noticed was that he's older. And when I say older, he's probably 50 or older. In addition to that, 20 years ago, he was a truck driver. Now, he was not applying for truck driving positions. I also want to let you know that age discrimination is illegal, but it happens all the time. But the employer doesn't come to you and say, look, I'm not going to hire you because I just think you're too old for this position. Obviously, they know better than to say something like that. But they say stuff like, you're overqualified, or I'm not sure if you would be a good fit here. And a lot of that is because your resume and your interviewing didn't line up with what the employer was looking for. So let's get back to this gentleman who is the truck driver 20 years ago. I asked him, I said, are you going into truck driving positions or applying for truck driving positions? He said, absolutely not. And I said, well, I'm really curious why you have truck driving on your resume right now. He said, well, I'm really proud of it. Said, I went to CDL class. It was very enduring. I'm really proud of the fact that I was a truck driver. And I said, okay, that's great. But what happens if the employer thinks to himself when he's looking at your resume that you are going to bail on me and go into truck driving as soon as a truck driver job comes along? He says, I'm not going to drive truck again. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, then take that off your resume. How about networking? Networking has changed in a huge way because of social media. But I also want to let you know that networking is still today the quickest way to get a job based on who you know. So I want you to lift your head up, throw them shoulders back, and everybody that you're running into, say, I'm looking for a job. Do you know of anybody that's hiring? I'm looking for a job. Do you know anybody that's hiring? Instead, what I find a lot of times when I'm working with you, because you're discouraged and because it's very difficult, your head is low, your shoulders are down, your body language has changed, even your tone of voice. Looking for a job isn't anything to be ashamed about. You're of value. So the first thing you need to do is recognize your skills, recognize your value, recognize we need you. I have employers that are calling me all the time and they're like, Lori, I can't find anybody to work. Well, you know what? If you're working with me or if you're working with somebody at the career force, I can very easily bump you into that job. Because one, I know your skills. Two, you've got a dynamic resume. And three, I've now coached you on how to interview really well and what the employer wants to hear. You're going to be able to go in and actually get that job. Another thing that's changed is teleconferencing. So, goodness, interviews have changed in a huge way. There are employers out there who they only interview virtually, and that can be intimidating. Trust me, when the pandemic first hit, I had never done a workshop virtually. So, did I learn? Yep, learned very quickly. Was I afraid the first time I did it? Absolutely. Sometimes you have to do things afraid, but I reached out. I have great work colleagues who they know what they're doing, and they took the time to teach me how to do a virtual workshop. In addition, they also taught me how to do a virtual interview. So I can take those wonderful skills and teach you how to do the very same thing. Most important thing that has changed is you. Now, a lot of times when we're, refreshing ourselves on some skills, let's say that you wanted to learn how to do Excel better, so you took a refresher course while you're job searching. Let's say that you're actually doing some research on a company that you might want to apply for. Do you know that that's called research? If you're applying for a company that is looking for someone who can do some more research, you can add that to your resume. A lot of the skills that you have, you're not recognizing them as skills. although the company is just waiting for you to apply because they need you, they need your help, and they need the skills that you work so hard to acquire to be able to come to the table and use those skills to help the new company. This slide is one of my most favorite slides, and it's called the T-table or the T-chart. Now, when I use this slide, if I were to be sitting down with you, I actually will take a blank piece of paper and I'll draw a T right on it. And what I will do on the left-hand side is I take what the job's looking for right off the job description. And then on the right-hand side, I write how you qualify. Okay, so a lot of times I want to point out to you that there are people out there who don't even really read the job description. They just say, okay, so I heard ABC Supply is hiring. I'm going to apply for ABC Supply. And I'm going to take this resume that I made about 2 years ago and I'm just going to send it to them because they're going to be able to figure out that I'm going to be a great fit for them just based off of my resume, even though it doesn't have anything on my resume that the job is looking for. They're still going to be able to figure that out. No, that's not true. We were taught years ago to do one resume and just continue to send that out to everyone. Those days have changed. What I want you to do is I want you to be a step above everybody else. And how you're going to do that is one, you're going to read the job description, and two, you're going to tailor that resume towards the job that you are applying for. When I was a hiring manager, I would get very frustrated when I would be looking at a resume or interviewing someone, and I would have to say to myself, did you even read the job description? So let's use this one as an example. So you can tell off the job description that this position is going to be recruiting team members. So now on the right-hand side, it says that I've exceeded all recruitment goals by attending job fairs and sourcing new applicants from various job boards. Now, I also want to encourage you that if you can add in numbers or percentages, that's even better. So I always say that you are the director of the story in my head. So when I'm looking at the resume, I want to get a really good sense that you're great at recruiting team members. I also want you to be able to describe that to me when I'm interviewing you. So in other words, if you can say, you know, I not only exceeded all recruitment goals, we ended up, our sales went up by 20%. Or as a result, we ended up hiring an additional 5 people. Really make it real so that again, that story is very clear in my head that I can see, you know, this person not only read the job description, they are exactly what we're looking for. Do you see how age has nothing to do with this? A lot of times you're not ending up getting that job just because of something as simple as this. Your resume didn't line up or you didn't interview very well because you didn't read the job description and weren't prepared before you went into that interview. I also want you to ask yourself, do I have the competitive skills that this job is looking for? If they want me to be proficient in Outlook, for instance, go on Outlook, Google Outlook, gather as much information as you can. If you don't have experience directly in what the company is looking for, if you have done some self-teaching, you can talk freely about that. You can talk about that at the interview. You can say that I have done some self-taught uh, classes and here they are, and list those classes on your resume. Ask yourself, do I want this job? You know, a lot of times when I ask people, why do you want to work here? Most times people will say, because I need a job. Well, you know, the truth is that we all work for money, correct? We all work for money. I mean, if you love your job, that's a bonus. But when you are interviewing, you want to work for the job because of the company, because you believe that they make a good product, or because you believe in their mission statement, because you put the time in checking out that the company treats their employees well. Again, it just takes a few minutes. If nothing else, at the very least, Google the company's mission statement, find out what they stand for. Ask yourself, do I want this job and why do I want this job? It's also really easy to go out and find some of those jobs that no one has posted yet. Now, how I recommend that you do that is through volunteering. Excuse me, I need to take a drink of water there. So one of the things that you can do is you can create relationships so that people will think of you first if something does come up. Now, the way they're going to think of you first is that you're going around and telling everybody that you see, I'm looking for a job. Do you know of anybody that's hiring? Correct. But the second thing is that you can do some volunteer work. Now, goodness, I'm not talking about volunteering 40 hours a week, obviously. You can't do that because you probably need to do some job search and some interviewing. But at the very least, go out and do a couple hours. Let me tell you how that worked. I was the hiring manager and I also was a nonprofit organization that I was working for. So, what I also was in charge of was our volunteers. When I would have you come in and do some volunteer work, I got a real sense of who you were. And what I mean by that is that, are you a person of your word? Do you show up on time? Are you trustworthy? Are you flexible? Do you do the job the way I'm asking you to do it? Do you get along well with my other great employees? Or are you one who comes in and causes trouble? Now, my point out of that is that because of my role, I would oftentimes have business owners come in and say, Gloria, I need somebody to work. Do you know of anybody? You're going to be the first person that I'm going to recommend because I know that you have great work ethics and I feel very comfortable and confident in recommending you. So, again, know that sometimes if you feel stuck, reach out to us. Get yourself back out into the community. Start to give to other people, and you're going to find that the universe is going to bring some of this stuff back to you. The good news with teleconferencing is that you are doing it right now. We're actually on a teleconference. So it can be intimidating, but I have to say that I'm very impressed with more and more people are getting more savvy and more familiar with using the virtual world. While you're doing the teleconferencing, if I were to do a mock interview with you and you had an interview coming up, let's just pretend tomorrow, and I'm doing a mock interview with you this afternoon, I am going to talk to you about your background. Now, you'll see with my background, I have a palm tree. I don't know that I would actually interview in this room, but you want to make sure that your background's appropriate. I don't do this workshop at my desk, and the reason is because I love horses, and behind me I have 100 different pictures of horses, that are very small, and they're doing funny things. Brings me joy to look at that collage that I have, but I would not use it if I was interviewing because it may distract somebody. Another thing is you want to make sure that you choose good lighting. The lighting that's in here, I would say, is fair. I'm sitting under fluorescent lights. It might be a little bit bright where it tends to wash me out, but at least you can see me and see my face. You want to make sure that you're not in a dark space because it's implied that you may be hiding something. Dress as you would face to face. You know, one of the things that if I want to have a good laugh, I'll go on YouTube and look at interviews that went wrong or virtual interviews that went wrong. You'll find all kinds of different scenarios that can happen. But it's crazy how when you're interviewing, all of a sudden in the background, here comes a loved one and they're dressed in their underwear and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I forgot you were in an interview. So know that that kind of stuff can happen, but it's also important that you dress the way you would if you were to actually come in and interview with me face to face. It is a known fact that it does something to us in our mind that if we are fully dressed, we tend to do better. You also want to have good eye contact and smile. A lot of times people a little bit intimidated. They're like, okay, I don't know for sure even where my camera is. I also want to let you know that right now I'm giving you eye contact, but know that if I'm looking this way, I want you to note how different that feels during this workshop as opposed to me looking at you. So you want to be able to have good eye contact. You want to be able to smile. Do you know that you can hear a smile? You can hear a smile. A lot of times, if I'm interviewing, I have a mirror with me. Now, it's not because I love looking at myself in the mirror, it's because I want to make sure that I'm presenting myself as friendly. And the way that I can do that is by once in a while glancing at the mirror and seeing if I'm smiling or not. It's just a good reminder. You want to make sure that your audio is good. There's nothing more frustrating than talking and no one can hear you. Or what's even worse is if you're talking and your audio is breaking up. So they're maybe only getting every other word. Goodness, that could get you into trouble really quick because you say, I am not, and they left out the word not. Always make sure that you have a backup phone number handy. So whenever Sheila and I do these workshops, we always have a way to get a hold of each other just in case something doesn't work. You know, as far as technology, it can be unpredictable from time to time. So let's say that Sheila's setting up the workshop and I can't get into the workshop to be able to work with her. I can call her up and say, Sheila, I'm not doing something right. Can you walk me through this and help me to make sure that I can, still be the presenter during the workshop? So my point is always if they call you for an interview, you want to say, what would be a great phone number for me to reach you in case I have technical problems? And Sheila, this looks like a great time for a question.
Yeah, there's a few here that we can have you address. First of all, someone wants to know, is there a workaround for entering your birth date when it's requested on an online application?
Yes, well, it's my understanding they're not supposed to be doing that. But what I always suggest is that you put 00 in the year. So say you were born April 1st, I would put 4100. And then once you're at the interview, obviously they're going to see that you're not 23 years old, but you're also not a person. I mean, excuse me, you are a person now, and you're not just a resume that I can throw away or an application online that I'm looking at. So that would be one of the workarounds. We can really specifically get into that individually for you if you reach out to us after the workshop.
Yeah, and generally the birth date question should be in the volunteer questions on an application.
Mhm.
Um, and then someone wants to know, do you recommend outlining the basic and preferred requirements only, or should we also address job responsibilities? I think this is when you were talking about the T table.
Yes. So I guess what I would do is I would make sure that uh, you're covering a little bit of all of it. So let me give you a good example of what not to do. I had a gentleman one time who applied and he could drive a forklift. I mean, this guy could do everything under the sun with the forklift. Lift stuff up high, pick it up down low, do pallet jack, all those wonderful things, but we didn't own a forklift. So what ended up happening then was I never interviewed him because I assumed that's what happens with us hiring managers is we have to pick out, we can only interview 3 people. If we've got 50 people, the company's not going to pay us to interview that many people. We can only pick out 3. So I assumed that this guy loved forklift driving so well because his resume presented it that way that as soon as he got a forklift job, he's probably going to bail on me and go after a forklift job because real um, my retail position probably doesn't pay as good as a forklift driver. I don't know any of that. I'm assuming. But getting back to your question, you want to make sure that that resume is covering what the company is looking for, whether it be job duties or whether it be minimum qualifications. For sure, you meet the minimum qualifications. And then you can add more information based off of what the company is looking for.
Okay. And a follow-up to the birth date question. Someone wants to know if you should do the same thing for the education, use the 00 for the birth date.
So do not put the year. So a lot of times we were taught years ago too that I needed to put on there that I graduated from Bemidji State University in 2003. Take the 2003 off. And typically on applications, they're not asking you the year that you graduated. But again, we can individualize this. If they are, please reach out to us and let us really narrow this down to your specific situation. I think you're going to get better answers on that.
Okay. And then one more question before you move on.
Yes.
Someone wants to know, why would I ever do a cover letter if I could just send a comprehensive T table? I like that approach.
Well, that is a fantastic question because you take that T table and you make it into a cover letter, and it's called a T cover letter. And that's the only type of cover letter that I ever send. And the reason is my experience as a hiring manager, most times I didn't read a cover letter. Now, goodness, sometimes you put 2 weeks into the effort of that cover letter. And now, Gloria, you're telling me you didn't even read it? Yeah, straight up, that's what I'm telling you. But the T cover letter is easy. I can see this is what I'm looking for, and you qualify. And I can look at that in 3 seconds. And I'm going to interview you based off of that. So combine them, use it for your cover letter. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you. So, how do you feel about looking for employment now? And do those feelings show? I work with a lot of people who they were wronged at their last job. They still are carrying that baggage and they will accidentally bring it to the new job. And in addition to that, it'll come out at the interview. And in addition, they won't get hired. And it has nothing to do with your age. The skills that you've gained since the last time you interviewed, do you even know what they are? Do you know that when we talk to people, the average person has 500 to 800 skills? And that's not someone who has a degree, that's the average person. That's the average skilled worker. Do you know, if I were to put you on the spot, how many skills you could actually list? What they say, what the professionals say is that you can tell me anywhere from 5 to 10 skills. That's it. Now, I believe the reason for that is because we don't sit around and talk this way. We don't say, "Oh, Gloria, it's really nice to meet you. Could tell me a little bit about yourself." I don't say, "Well, okay, so I'm a woman of my word. I'm dependable. I'm punctual. And I sincerely believe that the wisdom I have can make you a lot of money." And then walk away. You would say, "You know what? You're also a little bit on the odd side." But I'm telling you straight up that at the interview, that's when you need to talk that way. So, one, you need to recognize yourself as the value you are. And then in addition, you need to be able to talk freely about it and be comfortable and confident in what you're saying at the interview. Prove to me that you are the best candidate. Tell me you're the best person for the job. Do you know that oftentimes I would interview people and before I would come in and interview you, I would say, please, please just tell me what I want to hear because I need your help. I want to hire you. But if you're going to come in and you're going to say to me, well, I just need a job for right now until I retire, or I'm only here, man, just for a little bit and then I'm out of here. I'm tired of working. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So just help me to fill in the gap there, put some food on my table until I decide that I don't have to work anymore. Those are the types of things you'll say to me when I'm interviewing you. And I'm sitting there thinking, really? I'm not just going to be your filler. Now, oftentimes when you're being interviewed, you will be asked, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? So, what are your goals? What's the appropriate answer for that? Do you say to me, I'm retired, I'm going to be gone. 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be in Costa Rica. Let me tell you something. We all have plans, right? And we all have been spoon fed that retirement is the rock. I mean, we can't live, can't wait to get to retirement. That's what all of our goals are. Well, you know what? I'm here to tell you straight up that that's not what all of our goals are. And what I sincerely believe is since the pandemic happened and a lot of people were put in place and not allowed to, travel and not allowed to leave their homes and we had to shelter in place, a lot of us realized very quickly that, you know what, this is not the way I want to live. I love being social. I love rubbing elbows with my work colleagues. I love having to go to work. There's a lot of people who are our age that are in that same type of situation. And a lot of those people are saying, you know what? If this is what retirement's like, I don't want anything to do with it. In addition to that, I've dealt with a lot of married couples who they're like, you know what? The only way we're going to end up saving our marriage is if one of us get a job because spending this day in, day out with you is getting to be a little too overwhelming for me. So my point is that, okay, if you see yourself in 3 to 5 years retiring, good for you. That's fantastic. I'm not taking anything away from that. But for the purpose of the interview, the truth is that all we're guaranteed is today. Really all we're guaranteed is right now. So when you're asked the question, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? I want your answer to be, Gloria, I see myself working for you. And in addition, hopefully I will have gotten a promotion. Now, if you're saying, well, Glory, what are you telling me? I got to lie? No, that's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that life doesn't work out always the way we thought it was going to be. And yep, you might be going to retire in 3 to 5 years, but it might not turn out that way. And it might not be exactly what you thought it was going to be. One of the examples that I love to use in this workshop too is that there's a gentleman at our Walmart, and he is such a pleasant person. And I'm not that great at judging age, but I'd say he's probably in his 70s. I don't know. He's older. Okay. And I walked up to him one day and I said, sir, I'm a job counselor for the state of Minnesota, and I have a personal question I'd like to ask you. And if you don't feel comfortable answering it, I'm fine with that. But I just thought I'd throw it out there and see what you have to say. He's like, yeah, go ahead, ask me. I said, are you working here because you want to or because you have to? And he said, that's a real good question. He said, I'm working here because I want to. He said, I got a pile of money. He said, money's not the issue. He said, I live alone. I have a cat. And he said, I love being out in the community and being with people. So I decided that, hey, why not? I'll come apply at Walmart and see if they'd hire me to be the greeter. And I've been here for the last 2 years. And I told him, I said, you're exceptional at your job. Every time I come in here, you make me feel good about walking into Walmart because you're like, have a great day. Good to see you. He's very good at his job. So my point out of that is that stop being so hard on yourself. You might have goals, as we all do. Those are fantastic. But you know what? If you really want to go and get back into the working world, let us help you do that. There was a gentleman I was talking to, and as I'm speaking to him, he is making reference to himself 9 different times about how old he is. I'm not talking about he's telling me his age. He's saying stuff like, well, for my age, or, we don't do that anymore, or in my day. How are you speaking to me? But more importantly, how are you speaking to yourself? Are you telling yourself that you're aging every day? Or are you telling yourself, you know what? I'm getting younger and younger every day. That's what I tell myself. Does the clock agree with me? No. But do I care? No. Do you know that if you were to do some research on this, that they actually have proven through technology that when you tell yourself something, that your body lines up with it? When you tell yourself that you're getting older and older every day, that your cells and body lines up with it, that, okay, this person wants to be older and older every day, so I guess we're going to have to do that. Isn't that fascinating that they can prove that now? And again, check it out for yourself if you don't believe me, because it's actually truth that they're discovering. It lines up with the placebo pill. People will take a pill and get better just based off of their own belief, when here it's just a pill that has nothing in it. Now, another thing that is super important is, are you presenting yourself as being overqualified? A lot of times we take pride in the work that we've done, and you should. But were you a supervisor at one time and now you're going to apply for a position that is not the supervisor role? Are you going to be able to go from being the supervisor to being into a role where you can now follow instead of being the leader? I had a gentleman that I worked with recently, and he was the vice president of a company, but he was not getting any interviews at all. He's like, Gloria, I don't want to be. Well, what happened was the company actually closed down due to the pandemic. So he said, nobody's even interviewing me. He said, what's going on with that? And I said, well, I believe it's because one, you're applying for jobs that are not vice president level. And as soon as they see your resume, they're like, oh, I'm not going to hire this person because they want to be in a vice president role. So do you know that we removed that vice president title, and he ended up getting interviewed right away and ended up getting hired. So remember that you're being perceived not one through your resume, but then also through the interview. Are you telling me 9 different times that you're too old for the job? Are you telling me that when I'm not looking at you that way? I had a gal who I hired, and I don't know, it turns out that she was 82 when I hired her. Had no idea how old she was, didn't care. She convinced me she was the best person for the job. After I hired her, I had people come to me and say, would you hire her because you felt sorry for her because she's older or what? I said, absolutely not. I hired her because she is the best person for this job. She convinced me of that. And guess what? She's still working there. So my point is that, stop judging yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. Stop letting your narrative be negative. And are you updating your skills? A lot of times we think, oh no, well, that's not the way I was taught. I always want to challenge you a little bit and say, what do you care? If the employer wants you to do it a certain way, and you weren't taught that exact way, but you can go in and learn how to do it the way the employer wants you to do it. What do you care? You're getting paid, and as long as it's not illegal, do it the way the employer wants to do it. I always say, you know what? As long as I'm really clear on my job expectations, I will do it exactly the way you are asking me to do it. Nowadays, people don't even do that. They come up with their own ideas and then, do it, and the employer finds out later. Are you listing too many accomplishments or unrelated accomplishments? Again, getting back to the forklift driver. How do you talk? Are you listening? Or are you behaving like you did when you were in charge? Pay real close attention to some of those things because, again, here it is where you're not getting hired and you're telling yourself it's because, oh, they don't hire me because I'm too old. When here you convince them not to hire you because you're too old to do the job and you're the one that told them that. So again, I want to challenge you on what are you saying to yourself? And is that coming across at the interview? It's also important, we've talked a little bit about this, about making sure that you're aware that losing momentum is part of this. It's easy to start out in the beginning, like, yes, I'm all pumped up. I'm going to keep looking for jobs. I'm going to start applying. I'm going to tailor my resume. All is well. And I've done that for a week and I haven't heard anything from anybody. Know that that's really common. I work with employers a lot and I beg them, please at least give you some type of connection where either they email you or call you or however, text you, letting you know they got your application. That, thank you for your resume. We'll be in touch. If you're a good fit, we will be in touch. Keep applying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I have a lot of people who, and this seems to be common in our age group, that we just apply for one job and wait to hear from them. Don't do that. Put yourself out there. Make some goals for yourself. Once you do those goals, pat yourself on the back. I work with people who, goodness, they have diligently looked for 5 jobs. So they spent the day looking for 5 jobs. I had them print the jobs off. I had them take the jobs home in the comfort of their own home. And now they can sit and read those jobs descriptions and see if they really want to work at that position. But then I tell them, then set those jobs aside and go do something you enjoy this evening, whether it be go for a walk, go fishing, whatever it is. Pat yourself on the back and say, you know what? I made a goal for myself to find 5 jobs I'm interested in applying for. I did that. So tomorrow I'm going to wake up again. I'm going to do something I enjoy tonight because taking care of myself is a huge part of being able to find a decent paying job. And then what I'm going to do is I'll start over again tomorrow. And if I get discouraged, I'm going to reach out to the career force and let them know, all right, you told me to reach out to you. I'm discouraged. What you going to do about it? And let us help you. Make sure that your negative is out, is gone. Is your negative negative? I also want you to seek assistance on how to answer some of these questions. So sometimes, don't assume this, sometimes they'll ask you why you left your last job. But goodness, I have many, many, many people who never get asked that question, but they've been hung up on that question for a long time. Glory, how am I going to answer that question when they're not even asked? And I want you to put something into perspective here. Do you know that a lot of times the reason the employer is not asking you, why did you leave your last job, is 1, they don't want to know. 2, they need your help. So they'd rather not know. But I'll tell you what, if you go in there and you're going to start to tell me the reason I left my last job was because they were horrible to work for, the company treated their employees bad and I couldn't take it anymore. Do you know that when you're telling me that and I'm interviewing you, I'm thinking to myself, goodness, what are you going to say about us if it doesn't work out here? Every employer I've talked with, there's two things that are most important to them. One is their reputation. They worked very hard to acquire and develop a good, positive reputation in their community, and they will not sacrifice that for anybody. Again, do you see how this has nothing to do with age? Then the second thing is they have said in one form or another, Glory, when I'm interviewing people, I'm trying to figure out, are they going to fit in here? Are they going to come in and be great and work with my employees who are on, the payroll right now, who I absolutely appreciate? Or are they going to come in and they're going to cause troubles? Are they set in their ways? Do they want to do the job the way they think it should be done? Or are they willing to be flexible, adaptable, and learn how to do the job the way I'm asking you to do the job? So I want to challenge you a little bit on some of those thought processes that we have. I also want to tell you a couple different resources which are great at helping to update your skills. So there is a dislocated worker program, which I talked about at the front of this workshop. If you're interested in gathering more information about that, reach out to the local career force because we can give you more information on what that actually is. Another great resource out there is Coursera. I love Coursera. The only thing I want to talk to you about very quickly is that I want you to be careful because you will continue to have pop-up with Coursera, pop-up screens that say if you pay $49 a month, you can have access to all of our classes. Well, the people I work with, most of them haven't been working for a while and they don't have an extra $49 laying around to pay. And I believe that's a monthly fee. So I'm not encouraging you to do that, but what I am encouraging you to do is to check out their free courses. So I know that they have certificates that you can get, for instance, in Microsoft Word, you can get them in Excel. Check out those certificates that again are free that can help you to update some of your skills. Sheila, looks to me like we got about 15 minutes to have some good questions.
You have lots of questions, Glory.
Okay, good.
Okay. We're going to, a follow-up on the birth date question. Someone's saying that if you don't provide that information, won't employers maybe not consider you because you're not giving them the information that they've requested?
Yes. Now, here's the thing, you guys. I don't want to get into this anymore because this is going to be more of a specific situation question. You're going to get a better answer from that. So, as an overall, I want you to put 00 in there. But again, reach out to us after this workshop because I'm not going to be able to give you a good sound answer until I know specifically what you're talking about.
Okay, and then a couple of people had questions about how to answer the disability question that appears on applications. Some people have like maybe diabetes or asthma and it's under control. How would you answer the disability question?
Well, I tell you what, I would stay as far away from it as I can. I don't like the fact that companies ask that. And I wonder to myself, now, one, why are you asking me that? And two, are you using that as a screening process to screen me out if I do have a disability, which, by the way, is illegal? But again, it happens all the time. And I can give you a better answer if we really drill down on your specific situation, but I would stay as far away from that. Do you have a disability as possible? I don't know that I would answer that. Sheila, what do you feel about that one?
Well, again, that's one of those questions that should be volunteering to answer. Generally, they recommend you don't provide any information on disability till you've been offered the job, you know, and request accommodation if you need that. So
Yes.
yeah, avoid it as long as you can.
Yes. Good. I'm glad you're in
Okay.
agreement about that. That's a
Yeah.
great question, by the way.
Um, and then someone's asking, do we really need cover letters anymore?
Great question. So now here's where I stand on that. And my colleagues and I kind of have mixed feelings about this. I've talked to employers recently who have said, Glory, I use this as a test. If I don't ask for a cover letter, that means I don't want a cover letter. In addition to that, if they send me a cover letter, I look at it as the person struggles with authority. I'm like, wow, well, that is really interesting. And I'm not saying that that's what every employer feels, but here is kind of the rule of thumb. If they ask for a cover letter, you give it. If they don't ask for a cover letter, you don't. Sheila, what has been your experience on that one?
Well, of course, like you said, if they ask for a cover letter provided, I always feel that if you provide a cover letter, you're going above and beyond the other applicants. And it also gives them an idea of your communication style, how you communicate in writing. So I always think it's a good idea to send one.
Yes. Yep. Yep. So see what I mean? We kind of, it, it's a gray area. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about including only the last 10 years of employment on a resume? Oh, I think we lost Glory. Are you still there, Glory? Okay,
Yeah. Can you hear
you
me
went
now?
out. I can hear you now, but could
Okay.
you start over on answering that question?
Yes. Yes. Can
Okay.
you ask it again?
Yeah, how do you feel about including only the last 10 years of employment on a resume?
Yes, that's exactly what you need to do. And at the most, go only 15. All right. Now, I've had people who've gotten very offended by this. I'll give you an example. I had a construction worker and he's like, really, Gloria, I have worked over 30 years in construction. And he said, you're telling me I can only put 10 plus years experience on my resume? I'm like, yeah, straight up. That's what I'm telling you. Because let's think about this. If you put 30 years of construction on your resume and the person is looking for a young person to hire, which again, age discrimination is illegal, but it happens.
Oh, Gloria, you froze on us again. Okay, we'll see if she comes back on there. She was talking about the last 10 years on a resume. Oh. Yeah, still don't have her back. As Glory was saying, try not to go back more than 15 years. And as I indicated in the chat, if you have employment that goes back further than 15, 20, 30 years, try to use a combination resume because you can. Yeah, Glory, can you hear us now? I can't hear you. No.
I don't, how about
No.
now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
I don't understand what's happening, folks. I'm really sorry about that. Technological difficulties here in Duluth, I guess.
Yeah.
So
You're, yeah, we can't hear you again, Glory. As I was saying, try to use a combination resume where you can add another section, that includes other relevant experience. And then you don't have to use the dates that go back, 20, 30 years on your resume. Are you with us, Glory?
yeah, I
Okay.
am. I'm going to shut my, can you hear me now? I'm
Yep,
going to
we
shut
can hear
my
you.
video off. Is that helping?
Well, you're still there. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, I don't understand. Let's see. Um,
Okay, I don't think she's going to be with us. I'm going to go on to the next question. Someone was asking about remote positions. Any recommendation on how to note working with others and promoting teamwork in a remote position?
yeah, you know what, now Sheila, you're breaking up too. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you can't hear me? Let me see. I'm going to go down in the chat, see if anybody's put any. Okay, you can hear me okay?
That, yep, you're still, I can hear like
Yeah.
every other word.
Yeah,
So, I don't know if you can hear me or not right now, but what
Well, Glory, do you just want to mute yourself because it's still breaking up? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we will try to follow up with you after the webinar if we don't answer your question. So we still have a few minutes, so I will try to go through a few of these with you. Regarding, remote positions and showing that you can work with others and teamwork. Even working remotely, you're still going to probably be working with others, either virtually like we're doing right now by phone. And so if you can still show, in your resume how you worked on teams or your communication style in your resume, those will still be relevant with your remote work. And if you would like, some more information on that, feel free to reach out to us or your local career force. I have shown on resumes right at the top section, if it's strictly a remote position, I indicate in there how you can work remotely, how you can communicate with your teammates, letting them know that you have adequate internet, you have the equipment you need, those types of things. And then, let's see. Someone is asking, I think this is when Glory was talking about how to answer reason you left your last job. This is really an important question, and how you answered is very important. And I always recommend that you work one-on-one with somebody to develop a good answer for this. You want to keep it brief, you want to keep it positive, but everybody's situation is unique. So it's important that you figure out how you're going to answer that question before you go into the interview. If you'd like some help with that, please reach out to Glory, myself, or your local career force representative. And in the follow-up email, we will include the information on how you can contact your local career force. And then someone's asking, what are past employers able to say about your past employment? They can't really say a whole lot. Your dates of employment, maybe what type of employee you are. I know the legislature was talking about changing that. It might be good to check in with a career counselor, have them review that with you. Sometimes it's helpful if you know your references, ask them what they would say about you. Generally, the employer is going to ask you for references, and you want to provide them with employers or contacts that you know is going to say something positive about you. So generally, they shouldn't be calling somebody if that's not who you provide for your reference. Okay. And let's see, we might have time for a couple more here. And your questions are going by really fast in the chat. So if we don't get to them, we will review the chat to see what's left in there. I think there was a good discussion in the chat about emphasizing your Gen X and thicker skin. And I agree with the comments that were in there. You don't know who you're speaking to, what generation they're from. So you may want to leave that type of wording out of there and be more general, like the comments that they provided in the chat. One thing to emphasize, I think, as a job seeker over 50 is your work ethic. If you can show them longevity with a company, your outcomes on your jobs, that shows value to an employer. It shows that you're going to stick with them and that you pay attention on the job, you get your work done, and that's something that you have over maybe a younger generation. Okay, I'm going to go back up here, see if I can pick out some more questions before we end. Someone's asking about how to work best with recruiters. I would say the same, the same as if you're going to, work with one of our employment representatives at Career Force. You want to make sure that you sit down with them, develop a resume or 2 or 3 that's going to target the jobs that you're interested in. Make sure they're aware of your goals as far as the type of career you're seeking, so they're not submitting your resume or sending you to locations that you're not interested in working with. And I think, maybe your local career force would have some good options as far as recruiters that they have found success with, with the people that have worked with them. So please try to connect with someone locally who could give you some good connections as far as recruiters go. Okay. Okay, it looks like we are at 11 o'clock. I will send out the follow-up email tomorrow at some point once I get the recording. Glory, you're back. Can we hear you? We will send in the follow-up email, some of the other
Can you hear me?
resources that we have as
No.
well
Okay.
at Career Force. Yeah, you're breaking up still, Glory. Okay. Thank you for attending, everybody, and we will be in touch tomorrow with the follow-up email.